If you'd like to learn how to use a text box to get numbers from your players and filter out things that are not correct, keep watching and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Hi everybody and welcome to Roblox Snippets. If you want to follow along with the example exactly, download the GUI I've got over here in Starter GUI from my website, mrbrendanross.com, and then go to the resources page, and you'll find, if you look for the name of this video, down the bottom, download it, and you can add this in before we get started. That way everything will work along very smoothly. The reason I do this is just to save a bit of time so we don't have to spend a whole bunch of the time in the videos making the GUI when we actually want to learn about the coding behind it. So what we'll do for a start is we'll come up to Service Script Service and add a script in here. So this is going to be our get number script. So this is where we will do the processing once our players have entered a number and hit enter. Now down the bottom here in the GUI, if we expand it out, we've got a frame, we've got our text box here that our users will enter their number and then click on this button. So what we're going to do is get this button working and communicate with the script. Now this is on the client and this is on the server, so we're going to be using remote events to do this. But to begin with, we'll enter a local script in the enter button. So click on the enter button and plus and add a local script, and we can change this to be button script and just delete the hello world. Now the remote event that we'll use to communicate from the server, from the client, to the server, will be placed in replicated storage. So come up and left click on replicated storage, click on the plus, and if remote event doesn't come up in this list, in the search box just start typing remote event until you see it, and then left click to add it in, and we'll just leave the name of that as it is. Alright, let's come back into our button now. And the first thing we want to do is get a hold of this remote event. So we'll say local rs for replicated storage equals game, and then get service replicated storage, and that will get our folder, and then local event, so the remote event inside will be rs, and we'll say wait for child, set of inverted commas, and the remote event should appear. So you can just go ahead and hit enter. Then right below this we'll create a variable for the button itself. So button equals script.parent, and then we'll create an event when the player presses the button. So button dot mouse button one click, and then a colon, and we'll connect function with a set of brackets, just move outside and hit enter, and we will get this happen here. So we'll just leave this script as it is just at the moment, because we'll go and set up in our server script here, so get number script, a way to receive the button click. The first two lines, however, in the local one here, so the replicated storage and the event, we can take a copy of both of these. So highlight those and Command or Control C to copy. Come in here and we'll replace hello world with those two lines. Down below here we're going to create a function that will get triggered each time that a player clicks on the button. So local function get player number, and we'll just hit enter there. And now to trigger this function, we're going to monitor this event here, and we do that by saying event and then dot, and you'll see on server event, add a colon and connect, and then we're just going to type in the name of this function. So note there is no parentheses on the end. Right, and we'll do a quick test because we have to go back, and we'll just say this works inside here, and now we'll come back to our local script here, and the way we trigger that over here is simply to type event and then a colon, and we type fire server. and that's it. So when we click the button, it's going to send or trigger this event here, and this will run this function. So we'll give that a quick play and make sure that it's all working. Alright, I'm loaded in the game, and if I click on the enter button, you should see down here in the output this works, and I can click over and over and it will continue to do that. Right, so if that's working correctly for you, we'll stop that there, and we will come back to our local script. Now that we have a way for our button to communicate with our script up here, then we want to send some information through. So if we look at the GUI that I've created here, the text box where our players are typing over here, we want to send the text that they put in there through to the server when this button is pushed. So in our local script, we're going to send through we'll send it through directly by typing script.parent. So just follow me here. Script.parent, alright, will be the enter button, and then .parent is going to bring us up to the number frame, and then we're going to go back down to text box, right, and .text, and that is what we're going to send through to the server. So once again, the script is here. We go to parent, and then up to its parent, and then down to text box, and when the player types something in, it goes into this, where is it, down here, it'll be typed into here, and that's what we're going to grab and send that through to the server. So come over to our server script now, and we're going to just add a couple of attributes into our function. We can get rid of this print here at the moment. Now the first thing that's going to be sent through whenever you use this is the player. Now I didn't put that in over here, but by default there's an invisible argument that is sent through whenever you send through, and that is player. So it's always the first one, and then the next part is input. So that's going to be the text that is going into the box. Now once we get that inside of here, we're free to do some checks on it to make sure that everything is working correctly, and we're going to, up here, make use of this box again to display messages if things are correct or not correct. So we'll create variables to get that GUI for a start. So local player GUI will equal player, and wait for child player GUI. Whoops. Now if you don't know where this comes from, this starter GUI, when the game runs, changes its name to become player GUI under the player, and that is what we are waiting for here so that we can get the GUI inside of it. So we'll call our number GUI here info inside of here, and we'll look inside player GUI and wait for child number GUI, and when we're doing this, we're going to use this message label. So at the end here we can add in .number frame and then .message label, and that info will now represent this message label down here. Okay, so that's what the whole line looks like, and then we'll drop down one more, and we're going to create a variable called number. Now this input that's coming through here, we're looking for numbers in this particular example, but because it's a text box, it will always come through as a string. So the first thing we need to do is convert it to a number. So to number, and then we can just put in here our input. And we'll just save that there. So before we go any further with our checks, as I said, we want to display any problems up here or messages to our players in this box here. So we're going to create another function just above this one that will handle that for us. So local function, and we'll call this one update GUI, and we're going to pass in a couple of things. Now right above this, up the top where we've got our other variables, we'll create another variable up here called message, and it's going to be equal to an empty string, and we'll keep changing this depending on what we need to display to the player. Alright, so in our update GUI we're going to pass through info because that's the label where we want to put things, so we can type in here info, and we will also pass through we'll call this player number, right, because we're using number here, but we'll call this player number. So this is represents what the player has entered, and we'll pass through a message so that we can update our message and display it on the screen. So let's inside here now, we'll say info.text will equal whatever message has become when we passed it through. It'll be passed through here and it will be placed in here. Then we'll add a task.wait of say 2 seconds, and then we will set info.text back to its original message. Now something I didn't point out when which I'd already added in for you, if we come over and look at our message label in our GUI here with the properties, if you scroll right down the bottom, I've added an attribute that says original message, and it says exactly the same thing as here. But so we don't have to write it out, we're just going to grab this and put it back in after we've displayed any other messages. Alright, so in order to get that attribute in here, we'll say info, because that's the message label, get attribute, and it will be original message, and we'll put it back in here. So that will run any time that we need to display a message down below here. Right, to give us a set of numbers now to work with, we're going to define a number range, and we'll simply make it between 1 and 10. So up the top we'll create a range, so local number range will equal, and we'll just put in number range dot new, and you'll see here you have to put in a minimum, so 1, and then comma, and a maximum 10, and that's all you need to do. And we're going to be checking that the numbers are between 1 and 10 inclusive. So come back down to our function here now, and we'll start to do some checks, and I want to point out a couple of things while we're doing this. The first check that we'll do is to say if type of number, so that is, remember we've converted this to a number, equals number, so lowercase, then we're going to run our message up here. So we'll take a copy of this and put it down here, and the player number that we're going to pass in will be this number here. So we just need to change this to be number, and the message that we're going to pass through at the moment for this particular item here, we will, we don't actually need that player number in there, do we? No, we don't. So we might take that out of there. Sorry about that. I think that from an earlier, we're going to add the number in. So the message down here that we'll add in, so just the message, will be simply number. That's what we're going to pass through and update when we do a test. So sorry about that confusion, but we'll just the info and the message, because we don't use that player number up here, and it should look like this. And then we've come down and we've updated this function here. So let's give that a try. We'll click on File and Save, and let's play. Alright, I'm all loaded in, so if I go ahead and click on this now, and I type in here 5 and enter, you'll see we get 5 up the top. Now, if I type in RD, let's say, and hit enter, nothing happens. All good so far. However, there are a couple of things that you can enter in. Now, what if I put in 4.6? That is a number, but it's not one that we want, so we want to try to get rid of that. What if I put in here -4? Also related a number, but it's not what we want. And there are two others that we need to account for as well. If I type in NAN and hit enter, you'll see it prints NAN. Now, NAN stands for not a number. So that's a mathematical term, and it's still regarded as a number even though it's not right. So we need to account for that as well. And there's one other one. If we type in INF and hit enter, it also goes through. So INF is short for infinity. So as you can see, it's not as easy as you might think to filter out numbers between 1 and 10. So now we'll look at adding to our code to check for these things. So we'll stop the game there. So let's now come back to our number script, and we'll improve our conditional statements so that they will give us the right outcome at the end. So the first thing is we've said yes, it's a number here, and we're going to put an else underneath this. And now we're going to change message to be equal to, and we're going to give the player some instructions. So we're going to say only numbers between 1 and 10. So that will be our message, and we can take this out of here. We'll just cut that out and paste it down here. And this time we'll change this to message so that we're just passing through this message. Now we can concentrate on writing the other parts that I pointed out to make the checks. So after this number here, I want you to type AND, alright, and then a space, and we're going to check for that NAN, as I said. So just here, you can make a note if you like, and NAN, alright, equals not a number. Now interestingly, the way that you check that it is not a number is the only thing that doesn't equal itself. So what we do is we say number equals number, right? And what I'd like you to do is at the beginning of the AND, because we're going to do a couple of them, just put your cursor there and then hit enter. And we can also move then just down a line, so it looks like this. So this is not NAN. So effectively what we're doing is we're checking that number actually equals number, and without going into a big long-winded explanation, NAN will not equal itself. So if someone types NAN in, this line will eliminate that. Okay? Alright. Now the next thing was the infinity. So put in here INF infinity. And the way that we can check for that is we'll drop down a line and put and we're going to say if number is not, so the not symbol is shift plus the button up next to your 1 for the squiggly line, so that's not equal to math.huge. Alright, so that represents infinity, so not infinity. So as long as if they try to type this in there, this will eliminate that straight away. Now we're going to make use of our range that we put up here. So we need to check against the minimum and the maximum. So we'll drop down a line and we'll say and number is greater than or equal to our number range. So num range dot minimum. That will be equal to, equal or greater than minimum. Okay, and we'll do the same sort of thing for the maximum. So and number is less than or equal to number range dot max. So equal or less than max, and that will ensure that the number is within that range, including the 1 and the 10. Now the last one that I said was that we wanted to make sure that it wasn't a decimal. So we can say and number mod, so the percentage sign and space 1 equals 0. So this is a mathematical calculation, and if you're not familiar with mod, when you mod by 1, if this is not 0, it means there's a leftover or a decimal. So if it's 0, then it's going to be a whole number. So this makes it not a decimal. So that should be enough for us to give this a test. However, I'll just open this up so you can see everything here. And we were doing all of these ands, and then we have this then, and this will be if it is correct. So as long as it passes all of this, this is the message that we'll get. Any other time, it's going to say only numbers between 1 and 10. And we have our event down the bottom. So I'll open up our output window, and we'll file and save, and we'll play. Alright, I'm all loaded in, and we're going to do a few tests. So we'll put in a legitimate number for a start, say 5. Alright, that's fine. And what if I put in 1? Also fine. And what about 10? 10 is also good. Now, by the way, if you're noticing that your number doesn't disappear when you hit enter, we're going to fix that very shortly so that it clears when you hit enter. But for now, let's check the other things that we said. So let's put in not a number and only numbers between 1 and 10. Now, if we type in INF, also doesn't go through. Alright, we'll type in 4.8 and doesn't work. And let's try a negative number, so -3, also doesn't work. And the last one is outside of the range, so 89. That doesn't work. And what if we just put 0? Alright, so we have set up a very good filter system here in order to get just the numbers that we're looking for. So the very last thing we'll do is come back to your local script. As soon as this stops, there we go. And what we're going to do is I'd just like you to take a copy of the line inside of here and copy it and drop down below, and we're going to just put an equals and a set of inverted commas. And just so you can see what that does, I'll give it another quick test. So now when I type a number in like this and I hit enter, the number disappears out of the box. Okay, so it just tidies things up a little bit. So even if I, 3.5 wasn't correct. Alright, so I hope you find that you found the video useful, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. If you found this video useful, subscribe now. For more information about my online courses, go to mrbrendanross.com.